So let's turn to former Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo and former CIA analyst Buck Sexton. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, so this is a little bit of what, let's start with the New York Times. This is what they said back in April about what they thought Giuliani was trying to accomplish, that he's pushing Ukrainian officials to look into a couple of things they think would benefit President Trump. One is whether Ukrainian officials took steps during the 2016 election to damage Mr. Trump's campaign. The other is whether there was anything improper about the overlap between former Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr.'s diplomatic efforts in Ukraine and his son's role with a gas company there. Buck, what do you make about what we know so far? And there's a lot we don't know about this apparent whistleblower claim.
Well, it's fairly early stage, obviously, so it's tough to get too deep into whether this whistleblower is somebody who's acting out of a partisan motive or really has something. I think it's highly unlikely, and obviously the reporting in the past about how, oh, Trump has finally crossed the red line and someone in the intelligence community's got him, it's never been true. As for what we know in Ukraine, what we're talking about here is the possibility of Joe Biden engaging in corrupt conduct of his own. And that's completely within the bounds of what should be able to be investigated. It wouldn't be past the statute of limitations. And if we're going to have a discussion about whether or not we should get to the bottom of that, I mean, I think the time is now. And quite honestly, after we've been through a year-and-a-half-long special counsel that was a bridge to nowhere, for Democrats to be so up in arms about finding out what really did happen with Joe Biden and with his son in Ukraine, there's a lot of paper trail already, and I think it's going to get longer.
Well, and of course, this harkens back to something the former vice president said last year and publicly in front of an audience, that he talked about a loan guarantee that the Ukrainians wanted, and that he was at one point saying to them, if you don't fire this prosecutor, it's not going to happen. And the prosecutor was fired. Now, that prosecutor was allegedly looking into something involving a company that had Hunter Biden on the board. And tonight, John, people are saying it's not appropriate to go to the next step about what Biden was doing, and that shouldn't be something that this administration should be pressuring the Ukrainians into looking into. Have they crossed a line?
Well, first, I think we should focus on the appropriateness of even revealing to Congress whether this whistleblower, in fact, has any proof or evidence in the nature of his complaint. One is because under the statute, the whistleblower, the DNI only has an obligation to let Congress know about this complaint if it's something of urgent concern, but it's something that has to be within the jurisdiction of the DNI, people and operations. Here, if the rumors are correct, President Trump is conducting personal diplomacy, whether it's about Biden, Biden's son, or other issues. He's making commitments or not, or negotiating with the head of Ukraine. That's not something under the control of the DNI. President Trump doesn't work for the DNI. The DNI works for President Trump. So this whole complaint is about things that don't fall within the DNI's jurisdiction. But the second more important issue, and this goes directly to your question, Shannon, is that presidents under the Constitution are in charge of the conduct of our foreign relations. As the Supreme Court has said, only the president can speak and listen on the behalf of the nation with foreign leaders. It is not within the constitutional powers of Congress to force out in public or interfere or meddle with what President Trump wants to say with the head of Ukraine or not. That is, under the Constitution, up to the purview of the president, for good or ill.
Yeah, and we don't know for now. I mean, this is the Washington Post citing a couple of sources. It says that this is connected to Ukraine. We don't know. But Congress is very upset about the fact, a number of leaders there, that they can't get their hands on this. They think the acting DNI, who is set to testify on the Hill next week, has done the wrong thing by doing this. I want to play something from Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, how he is assessing the situation tonight.
There's no discretion in the law on this. When the acting director of national intelligence gets this information, he has to tell Congress. There's no go talk to the White House, go talk to the Department of Justice, go straight to Congress. And the fact that they're going outside of normal channels, again, it's just a breakdown of law and order in this country that this president has brought.
Buck, he says this administration is doing things that have never been done before, and that they're violating the rule of law, and this is a perfect example.
Well, Democrats keep saying that things that President Trump does are unprecedented, and then we find many precedents for them, and they never seem to learn their lesson. As to what was just said about what is the president's role here, what's his realm, I mean, he does have a tremendous amount of leeway. It's hard to even fathom what this whistleblower would think that he heard that would cross into a legal realm that would be worthy of this kind of complaint. And look, let's be honest, we've seen a number of very senior officials who have it in for President Trump from the intelligence community where I used to work. This could be another instance of that.
Well, we will see. And again, the acting DNI is supposed to be on the Hill before the House Intel Committee next week. They're going to have plenty of questions, as we all do, waiting to find out exactly what this entails and who's involved. In the meantime, John and Buck, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.